Well, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parks and Conversation. And this is a rewatch of the classic series Parks and Recreation. And then we talk about it. And my name is Jason, and I'm joined all the way across town by my friend Jeremy. Say hello, Jeremy.
Hey, how are you?
Man, I am doing great. And yeah. And you, what's up?
Oh, nothing. I'm here.
Yes. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Well, today we are going to be discussing season 3, episode 4. Media Blitz is the official title.
hmm
And this is another great episode of Parks and Rec where we get to see the powerful media empire that is Pawnee, Indiana. And I wrote a lot of notes about just how ridiculous their media is as that things like came up. But before we get too far into the episode, we need to have a town forum.
Okay.
And this is what I'm going to start calling our email segment, Town Forum, because this is where the crazies come from. And part of the reason why I wanted to go with this name is because of this email. We just have one email to read today. And the subject line is amazing. And it made me think of Pawnee and their town forums. And so this is the subject line, Jeremy. Brace yourself. The only thing I will wave is your decapitated head on a stick in front of your weeping mother. Oh, it's not a death threat. It's just my favorite line. Let's be friends.
Oh, that took a turn.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
Good
the
morning.
subject line.
Good
And
morning.
I was like, what are we talking about?
Now, who did we must have made somebody upset. I don't know. Wow. I didn't think
Yeah.
I didn't think we were that bad. I mean, I know we're not professional podcasters, but I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah. So that was a great email subject, and it was like, this definitely has to be the town forum. This is what we're just going to call when people email us. And maybe at the end of this season, we can get like a call for emails and have a specific episode that is devoted to email as a town forum. And the more bizarre the emails, the better. And so great subject lines like this, as well as ideas that, let's say we were a parks department in Pawnee, Indiana. What would you want this parks department to do for you? And so,
Or not do.
yeah, exactly. Anything's open. It's a town forum. And so if you want to send emails, you can send those to parksandconversation@gmail.com, and we will read through those. If you want to save it for a town forum email, then put forum in the subject line. And otherwise, we'll just read it from time to time. If I find some that are really great, I will save them and save them up for a town forum. So I'll create a little folder in my Gmail account. It'll be great. It'll be great. But this email is from a listener all the way from Israel.
Wow.
And yeah, shalom. And this writer asks us to withhold their name,
Mhm.
but they're from Israel. They just binged listening to all of our episodes. So
Whoa.
thank you. Thank you for doing that. I don't know if I've even listened to all of them. And you're like, we can tell by your editing technique. Um, but they really want us to know how much they enjoy the podcast and sometimes relate to our thoughts. You're great. 2 exclamation marks. So, yeah. And so they did say here, you can, please don't say my name, but you can say the country if that's some reason interesting. But I prefer to remain nameless. Lol, that's a real Swanson move. Now, seriously, in season 3, every episode is gold. I can't wait to rewatch it. Oh, and about the time capsule, probably would not put a DVD in because seriously, who will still have a DVD device? So, yeah,
We
thank
would
you.
have to put a DVD device in with it.
Yes, and whatever potential cable,
hmm
like because HDMI probably isn't going to be the standard.
Well,
So we have,
and then a TV
yeah.
and
So
probably
this,
some kind of energy source.
yes, because there won't be energy in the
Will
future.
will there be enough room in your element for that?
For a TV and a DVD player and a DVD and a generator?
Mhm.
Yes.
Perfect.
I think so. So, yeah. So, I mean, we could still do that, but if there's other things you want to include into the Pawnee time capsule, think size of my Honda Element, then please let us know. You can send us an email to parksandconversation@gmail.com. So that is the wrap up of our town forum, and it's really just a time for people to be heard. And it's a crazy convention, as Ron calls it. So now on to Media Blitz, and the synopsis of this show is the Parks Department is throwing the Harvest Festival. It's 2 weeks away, and there's still dramatically low awareness, and so they need to go on to the various media outlets in Pawnee to raise awareness, gain interest, and to keep this Harvest Festival going. Because remember, everybody's lives are on the line, at least their jobs. But if you don't have a job, you don't have a life. So there we are. Off the top, before we get too far in, what are your initial thoughts about this episode of Parks and Recreation?
I was surprised at how low it was rated on IMDb. That was it. I loved this episode, and I wrote down a ton of jokes, and I thought it was really, really funny. And then I looked it up on IMDb, and it rated lower than Ron and Tammy 2, which I get it. I know that Ron and Tammy 2 for a lot of people is like a fan favorite, but 8.1 seemed low for this episode. But I think maybe there's other reasons that we'll get into later why I like this. I'm a little sentimental, so there was some stuff in here that I thought was really cool. So, but I also thought there was a lot of great jokes. So, what about you?
I love this episode for a variety of reasons. One is Perd Hapley.
Yeah,
Any Perd Hapley episode will just climb up in my ranking to 11 out of 10.
more
I
like
love Perd. Perd
more
is
like
so
Turd
great.
Crapley.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a bit. So let's start with the cold open. And I don't know about you, but I love antiquated technology.
Absolutely,
I think
absolutely.
there are things like my wife and I, we go thrifting. We go to the Aurora Antique Pavilion, which is not far from either of our houses. Like it's a nice little place to go and hang out. And
Hey,
I like
fun fact. Sorry, doing this on over the internets is really hard to like not step on people's lines and stuff. But anyway, if you ever look up the Aurora Antique Pavilion online, if you look up on Google Maps, I won't give you the exact address. If you look at the overhead shot, it looks remarkably like the Millennium Falcon.
okay.
So there you go. Continue.
Well, what do you want me to do with that information right now? Like I have to go and look.
just keep going. Just keep going.
All right. Okay. So we like to go and look around at stuff. I love looking at old like lanterns. Like there's a green lantern like for railroads. Like I would love to have that.
You should have
But
that because you're a comic nerd like that. It's not just like you like railroads. It's like
yeah,
right?
I get it. I should have it, but at the same time, like I have nowhere to put it. Like I just can't justify.
You hang it at the junction.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
I'll just make a junction in my cul-de-sac.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a train, you are way off.
Yeah, and there's no way to turn around. So
yeah,
I guess that's where you live now.
I guess it should just always be red. Like, please stop. Don't come down here. So Ron, he's an old timey guy, and he finds this old typewriter by the dumpster, and he decides that he's gonna fix it. And he, does everything to fix it up, and he even found an old ribbon for it on electronicbay.com. and and so then he starts typing, and he's annoying everybody with it. So when he leaves his office, staff wants to throw it away, and they come in to throw it away, and it's too heavy to pick up, and there's a note on it saying like, don't mess with this. And then he comes back in, he's like, I'm gonna type every word I know. So oh man. And so his words include America, rectangle, butthole. So way to go, Ron. Love it.
Monday. Megaphone.
Yeah, so good. And one of the things that I had heard years ago from Conan O'Brien when he had a show is that if they say a website on television, they have to buy that domain so that somebody else doesn't go and squat on the domain or do something inappropriate with it. So I immediately, as I'm watching this, I put it on pause, and I was like, look up electronicbay.com. Nothing. So Conan lied to me, and I feel bad. But it got me thinking, what if I were to buy electronicbay.com and redirect it to our podcast?
I
But
mean,
I don't know.
all the people searching for Electronic Bay would be very disappointed.
Well, the only people who are going to search for it are Parks and Rec listeners
That's true.
or
That's true.
watchers. So, like, you know, synergy, Lemon, synergy.
Never badmouth synergy.
You know, Reagan when he had his bad times. So yeah, so then it cuts to credits. This was a great cold open. Very it was very funny. It was very day in the life in the office. And it doesn't come back in the rest of the episode, really, but I loved it, except for the fact that they do use it to type. They do use
Right.
the typewriter later, but like the actual like annoyance level doesn't come back. So
Right.
and then so cut after the credits comes back, and Ben is the bearer of bad tidings, and he tells everybody Harvest Fest is 2 weeks away, awareness is too low, and he hands a chart to Leslie. He's like, oh wow, almost 43%, and Ben's like, actually it's 42.74%. And they start making fun of his robotness, which is hilarious to me. And I don't know why Ben puts up with it, because like is he their boss right now? Like, I don't know the whole power dynamic, but they all make fun of Ben a lot.
Yeah, I don't think he can really do much because he's kind of on the team, but not. And so to pull the boss card, then he looks like stuck up. So he's still trying to fit in, I think, a little bit. So I think he kind of puts up with it. I don't know.
All right.
That's my read on it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a read. I would agree. I'm on board. No problem.
Plus, I don't think Ben really sticks up for himself very often anyway. So
yeah, it's true. That's a good point. He's kind of a doormat. Yeah, so then it cuts to they go to say like, we're gonna go, just need to raise awareness. And so Leslie does a talking head where she's talking about all the ways that she's trying to raise awareness, and one of them is even trying to get onto Oprah, which like she reached out to Oprah and didn't hear back, so she's putting it out there like in the secret.
I love that's such a great joke. It's so funny.
It's such a great joke that is so defined to a window in time.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, in like 3 more years, I don't know if anybody's going to know what that is. Like if somebody just starts watching it, it's like, what's the secret?
Just in case people come across this late after somehow and puts it all together, like what is the secret?
It's basically making wishes. You know,
Wow.
The Disney song "When You Wish Upon a Star."
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, but somebody wrote a book about it. So you put your desires out into the universe, and you say like, I want to drive a Lamborghini, and now it's out there to the universe. It is now an open secret. I don't know. I don't understand most of it. I just saw Oprah talked a lot about it, and then that was when I was like, oh yeah, the High Priestess, Oprah. She's got all kinds of weird things to say. So
I'm just going to start writing books about Disney songs then, like the Hakuna Matata.
Yeah, or like a self-help book on, don't worry, basically, for the rest of your days. It's a problem-free philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. Under the Sea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How is that helpful?
Well, if you're ever under the sea, then you have friends and you know crabs and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, and no place is hotter than under the water.
Exactly.
And
that's what I'm saying. You can go anywhere.
All things are better down where it's wetter. Is that the line?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how well that one's going to sell, but like whistle while you work.
Mm-hmm.
How to enjoy your job. First of all, you need to have a bunch of dwarves.
Right.
And then
if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah. And then also at home, get the animals inside. They'll do the dishes for you.
Yes. If you whistle.
Yeah. That actually does work for my dog. I will whistle and she will come.
And just do the dishes for you?
If I leave them on the floor, she'll clean them.
That's true. I've seen that. Okay.
She's really she's not motivated by much. And she's really not in a hurry to do a lot of things. But if I put a plate with any kind of food substance on the floor, she is not going to waste any time. So there could be like Toyota efficiency studies based on her rate of cleaning plates. She's great.
It's Kaizen, that thing.
Yeah, she's so good, so good. Anyway, so they're gonna go do the morning shows, and they are talking about these morning shows that they're gonna do, and they mention being on Crazy Ira and the Douche, which is great. We get to meet Crazy Ira and the Douche, but they also then Tom makes a comparison to another morning show
Yeah.
that is in Pawnee. That the Crazy Ira and the Douche are better than this other show, which I wrote down the question. There's 2 morning shows in Pawnee.
Yes. I put Pawnee's number 2 radio talk time show.
I was like, what the heck, man? This town is too small.
Tubby Tony and the Papaya.
Yes, good. Yeah, it was just one of those things where it's like, they've definitely built a world here, and I would love to hear Tubby Tony and the Papaya. Later on, we're going to have an experience with the public radio side of Pawnee. So we have 2 commercial radio stations in Pawnee and a public radio station. Like, that's just the radio platform. And then they have however many channels and a newspaper that are all Pawnee centric. It's all too much. Too much.
At the very least, the thing about radio stations, I feel maybe a little bit like the television station. It's like public access. If you have a show, you can use the equipment. I'm sure Ira and the Douche aren't on 24/7, so they have, the ability for, the what Jazz Plus Jazz or whatever the public radio side of things is. They can come in at different times. So I mean, at least the radio stuff, that's pretty easy. That's like podcasts, right? Like, I don't know. The television stuff, that's
dare
a little.
you? Are you besmirching podcastery?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I only dream to get to the size and influence that the 93.7 The Groove of Pawnee has, over the listeners that we have. Yeah,
I would hope, man. So anyway, now that I have taken the time to rant on the media here.
Do you feel better?
I do feel a little better, but I also feel a sneeze coming on. So, 6 of 1. So it cuts away. They've got the media blitz plan here. They're going to break up into teams and all that kind of stuff. And it cuts away, and it cuts to Ann and Chris stretching in Chris's office. And April comes in, like, I'll come back when you're not being weird.
Yeah, but it's not just stretching, right? Like, he has her over his back. Like,
yeah, linked. It is very strange. So, and April's response is just like, I'm going to come back when you're not weird. And I love that. So she'll never see them again. And so Chris is like, hey, have you thought any more about going with me to Indianapolis? And they talk about the job and what it's going to take. And April agrees to go. All the while, Anne is in the background of the shot, and you can see how bummed she is. And like, she wants to go, and she's frustrated that she doesn't know the status of their relationship. And so that's tension 1. And then cuts away, and Andy is hanging out outside of Chris's office, and he's like, hey, what were you guys talking about in there? Was it about going to Indianapolis? And he wants her to stay. And so he says that he agrees to do everything she hates doing for a month if it will convince her to stay. And she says, all right, if you do that, I will think about staying. And Andy is encouraged. And I love his line, you won't live to regret this.
Yeah. Wait, I don't think that means what you think it means.
You won't live to regret this. And he goes off, feeling hopeful and optimistic that he might kill her. So, and then it cuts to 93.7, The Groove, in Crazy Ira and the Douche. And I love this radio station. Now, morning radio is an interesting world. And I don't know. Do you ever listen to morning radio?
No,
because you don't. I mean, you don't have a commute really, but
no, I don't get up by morning time, so I'm usually afternoon radio.
Which is even worse.
Yeah, so then I just don't listen to it.
Perfect. In the past, then, did you ever listen to like 97.3 or Bob Rivers or any of our Northwest radio personalities?
Nope,
No, never. Oh
never.
man. Oh,
No, why listen to people talk when you can listen to actual music? What radio was invented for? These are just people spouting their ideas out into the world for anybody to listen to. Like they have any, like, who cares about those guys? Like, their opinions even matter about something, right? Right?
are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
It feels like it's exactly what we're doing, but
Oh,
whatever.
wait, what? Oh, dang it! Trapped by my own words.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm hearing what you're saying.
No, I like music better, honestly. I just
Yeah.
I don't know. And the whole shock, like, go, you do your opinion first, and then I'll tell you.
Well, I just the culture of the morning radio show,
Mhm.
like I listen to Robin and Maynard or Bob Rivers and Spike and the crew on 102.5. I haven't listened to morning radio in a long time because I had kids and I started doing all my morning work at home. And so I don't know what the current culture is, but like all of the like shock jockiness of Crazy Ira and the Douche talking about, you know, gross things, but then also like audio drops with the guy who like doesn't say anything. I think his name is Asian Tony, I think. um and he
He's
like
actually Vietnamese, but yeah.
but he makes all of these audio like montages that all end in farts. Like
Right.
all of that was so like brilliant and so on point with what I have experienced in my own listening to radio in the morning in the past. Like, wow, they really like dialed it up. But it starts out with Crazy Ira and the Douche talking, and it's like, you know why I can't be an astronaut? Space farts. And they make this fart noises, and it's so great. And like, you can't roll down the window on the shuttle, is that right? So
Tom and Leslie are just
love it.
busting up.
Yeah,
But see,
and you could see Ben in the background, just like, oh,
yeah, and
yes, you what?
I'm more like Ben. I'm like, yeah, I get it. This was funny when I was in middle school, I guess. But what's the point of this? I don't know. That was me.
Yeah. There
Sorry.
are a couple things in this episode that also reminded me of my friend Jeremy. So, so when you say I'm like Ben, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
So they're on here to talk about the Harvest Festival, and Leslie describes it as this is where fun meets awesome meets agriculture. And pretty excited to get on board with that. So so the radio plug is going well so far. Cuts to the office, and Andy is working the permit desk, and a guy comes in to tell him that his bird is missing, and Andy's like, oh, I'll get the form. He's like, there's no time for forms, this bird can fly. Like, yeah, that's a good point, man.
There's no time. He can fly. That was one of my favorite jokes of the whole. It's like, it's done, man. It's over.
Yeah, it's gone. That bird is no longer your bird. And
It's our bird now.
Yeah, it's a collective bird. I've seen on my road that I live off of here, there's all kinds of lost dogs, lost cats. I have seen lost bird signs. It's like, what do you want me to do with it? Like, it's flying. Like, I don't think the bird's going to respond to its name.
Wait, come back.
Yeah. Hey, land here. I mean, it's a bird.
It is kind of weird, though, when you see like a parakeet in the wild. Have you ever seen, like, obviously somebody has just let it go, but it's survived, and it's like, I'm a pigeon now. I'm just hanging out with these guys.
Yeah, it's got an eye patch.
It's like, yeah, it's the scrappy canary.
You can tell he's like trying too hard to fit in because he's wearing like a denim jacket with the sleeves rolled up, and like he's just like, yeah, dude, I'm
smoking a
here.
cigarette up there.
Yeah, it's got a switchblade. I don't know how he flies with it.
I'm gonna poop on that cop car. See, I could do poop jokes too.
Yeah, good job, dude. Crazy Ira and the Douche. And then another kid comes along, and Andy's still working the desk, and a kid starts hitting Andy with like a plastic bat. And Andy's just like, cute kid, and he's just letting it happen. So Ron sees this and asks, like, why are you letting that kid hit you in the nuggets? So Andy tells the plan, like, I have to work this list. And Ron is like, let me help you. And it's cuts to talking. He's like, I don't care about the relationship. I can never find a worse assistant. So, so he's trying to keep April also. So now these two are working together to convince April to stay here in Pawnee.
Yeah, but also I think he cares. He cares a little bit. He does. He just doesn't want to admit it. That's his cover story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, Ron likes Andy. Ron likes April. And he would like them to stay together.
Yeah.
In another episode, he talked about how, like, absolutely he'd get married again. I mean, if there's no love, what's the point of living? So, I mean, he's a romantic. Cuts back to the radio, and Ira and the douche want to talk to Ben. And they ambush him about his mayorship and Icetown and how he bankrupted the town. And they say, we searched you up on Alta Vista, which we find out is the preferred search engine of Pawnee. And they find out that he, when he was 18, he was elected mayor and he bankrupted the town on Icetown. And they ask him about it, and he completely falls apart. He's just stammering. He can't get words out. It's not good at all.
It's almost like he has a meltdown.
He does have a meltdown when he's talking about Icetown. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. And so that it keeps falling apart, and the guy's like, game over, man. The drops guy. And there is a caller, radio caller. Again, people who call into the radio to share their opinion. Maybe some of the least smart sounding people I've ever heard. And they nailed it here too. 18 is young for a mayor. What were you, like 12? So yeah, that's what happens. So yeah, it's just not good. And cuts away to after the segment, and Ben and Tom are talking, and Tom says, was that your first time talking to other people? Because it sounds like it. So he's just not good on the media.
No.
So I mean, part of it, like, you think about Ben's life, he's working so hard to, correct the course. He knows he failed, and so he's trying to build a reputation of responsibility, of being able to turn towns around financially, all these different things. But it's all been behind the scenes, and so here, he is now brought into the blinding lights of the radio, and can't even handle it. And
it's the worst way possible, because this is, I mean, these guys, they make their whole living like ripping people apart. And so, you get a guy that's not thought about it for 20 years, and these guys just eviscerate him on the radio. Yeah, I'd flop sweat too. I mean, I do anyway, but I just felt so bad for Ben. I started getting I started flop sweating myself just watching that part every time. Like, that's hard. It was hard to watch,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that he has your support.
Always.
You're always here for Ben. Always. And so Leslie is like, hey, I'm going to talk to Tom, not related to you at all. And then goes over and he's like, he's terrible. And Ben, we need him because he's the numbers guy. And Tom's response is to say, put Ray-Bans on a calculator and that will be fine. So
your boy's a wreck.
So and you can still hear Tom, I don't know why, but Ben is still in the studio. And douche comes in and it's like, hey, good talking to you, Icetown. You liking Pawnee? And Ben's response is a lot of cars, trucks.
Yep.
And that is when I was like, Jeremy.
And he nailed it too with he doesn't make eye contact. He's kind of looking down, playing with the papers on the desk, just kind of, anything I can do right now to get out of this situation. And he's like, good talk, Icetown. He just takes off. And at that point, you take the insult because you're like, oh my gosh, it's over.
Yeah.
You're not even mad that you got insulted. You're just like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, just go away. Let me hide. So I think everybody has been there at some point where it's like, I have no words to say how awkward I feel right now. And anything I say is only going to be worse. And Ben is just a great example of everybody's middle school. So,
High school,
uh,
college, and somewhat into their 40s.
yes. So they divide up, and so Tom and Ben are going to go on Perd's show because he's a softie. It's going to be easy, and so they give him the light work. So okay, plan going forward. It sounds good. They cut to Anne's house where Anne and Chris are eating a bland salad, is what I wrote down. Like they have water chestnuts, garbanzo beans, walnuts, all things that actually don't have much flavor. And Ben is like, oh man, or not Ben, Chris is just like amazed at how flavorful and complimentary all these different ingredients are. And it sounds gross. And then Anne talks about the dressing that she made, which she says it's the same ingredients as bird feed. So, man, again, gross. I don't
Eating
think I
health
could be friends with Chris.
Eating healthy is hard.
It is. It is. I thought about eating healthy earlier this week, and then I had a bagel. I felt better, like instantly. Like this bagel is awesome. So, so Chris, Anne is trying to figure out their relationship, and Chris comes and is like, "I'm just going to go out and say it," and then he just says, "I need to adjust the feng shui of your house." And Anne is like, "Yeah, do it. I'm not attached to any of the furniture, the arrangement, or this house really." Like giving all the hints, like I could leave here and I would go with you. And Chris is still not getting it, but it cuts to a talking head with Anne saying like, I don't know how to be more obvious. And Chris is back there moving the furniture by himself. So even with this camera crew in the house and like he's not so far away that he wouldn't be able to hear her say, I don't know how much more obvious I can be. Chris is still oblivious to what's happening there.
He's
So,
focused. You got to fix the flow.
exactly. I totally agree with you. So cuts away to Leslie in her office holding Shauna Malway Tweep's video recorder and giving her the headline and the lead of the article. And Leslie wants to learn more about, or not Leslie, Shauna wants to learn more about what's going on with Ben because, crazy Ira and the douche blew that story wide open about Icetown. And Leslie says he is doing a good job. He's a budget manager, all this different kind of stuff. And then he says he's also easy on the eyes. And so Shauna is a journalist. And this is like the first time we see Shauna, the journalist, actually like jumping in to be like, well, what is the nature of your relationship? Like actually asking a difficult question. And Leslie has her own meltdown. We are colleagues with benefits who benefit that we are also friends. So saved it. So that's not a great sign. But we're last episode, they went out to dinner together. And here we have Leslie saying he's easy on the eyes. And so like there is a burgeoning interest here between the two of them. So, which is great. This is probably, when I think about Ben and Leslie's relationship, it feels like the most organic relationship in a sitcom in a long time, where you meet them and they actually it just makes sense that they like each other,
Yeah,
like
but it
all the
wasn't like from moment one they just like fell in love, but they couldn't be together because of all these other reasons. Like they almost didn't like each other at first, which was even better.
right.
Yeah.
So I just think that's some really great writing. That the way that they developed those two characters. Yeah. So I like it. Good job, guys. Good job, Parks and Recreation people.
Well, and I think too, at this point, we're kind of, I don't want to say like distracted by, but like April and Andy's is much more on the surface as far as like, we know that they like each other, but they are that will they, won't they, versus, Ben and Leslie are just kind of on this trajectory, like, that we might not even be, some people might not be seeing just yet.
Yeah. True.
And
So
speaking of Andy.
Yeah, speaking of Andy, Ron and Andy are working together and they are deciding to write a thank you note for April's grandma for her birthday money. And so Ron types it up and they're trying to figure out what do they call grandma? It's a Nina. And so all these different names. And so Gizmo, right? So they start writing it up and he brings it over to April and he's like, I wrote it. thank you note for your grandma. He's like, it was for my grandpa. Okay, you are a beautiful woman. He's a man. Thank you for your $500. It was $5. And so everything about the letter is wrong, but
enjoy the mouse rat CD.
yeah, he's deaf. So everything is bad.
It's like,
But he's trying.
so you want me to make those changes or no?
Right. Yeah, I love Andy so much. And so cuts to Tom and Ben driving, and Tom is talking about how you have to do the Haverford schmooze, which is like light contact, a compliment on their appearance, and a joke. And he's like, here's an example. Perd, is your dad RoboCop? Because those arms are guns. And Ben is like, RoboCop's arms weren't guns.
It's not the
He
point,
can't help
nerd.
himself.
It's so good.
Yeah, I love it. And so they are going to go into the mall to get a new suit because Tom cannot handle Ben's suit anymore. It's garbage. And Ben's response is, your suit is garbage. Like, these are Brooks Brothers kids, doesn't make garbage. So cut back to the office, and Ron and Andy are working the list again, and Andy has to help April with a art project to capture this photography project to capture the spirit of melancholy. And Ron's like, I'm on it, and takes the camera, just starts taking pictures of stuff. It's like sad desk, sad dartboard, sad floor, art is anything. And Andy's response is, yeah, the floor does look sad. Sorry for stepping on you. Love it.
I love that.
It.
It's art. Anything is anything. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and you're a photographer, so I mean, is that true?
Oh, very, very, very much. I think the true art is in making your description sound like what you've done is art. Like,
yes, yeah, yeah. And so Donna catches wind of all of this. Like, Andy seems to be helping April with stuff, and so she gets April to get Andy to help Donna with some things. Something April does every day is give Donna a foot massage. And then Jerry is also there for that, and April's like, "Yep, him too." So
thumbs up. It's so great.
Yeah, that's what's going on there. Then it cuts to You Heard with Perd, and I love Perd so much. And the thing about my love for Perd is how much he says the thing about.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. And so he's introducing the guests, and they're going to talk about the Harvest Festival. And Tom is so good at this, so complimentary, so just on point dealing with Perd. And then Ben has some sticky moments where things fall apart, and it cuts to the office, and Tom has brought the tape from the interview, and Ben's meltdown includes this phrase, "Who hasn't had gay thoughts?" And is there a bird in here? Why is there a bird in the studio? So it's all bad. And the whole team is watching this interview, and then Ron takes a picture of Ben. He's like, boom, that's it. That's sadness. That's the one.
Yes. And I love too, in the middle of it, like, Perd kind of drops the whole Perd, and just for, like, I think the only time in the whole series he does his most unpurd like thing, and he actually, like, Ben breaks Perd because Perd just goes, "Are you okay?" Like
Right.
so like, I'm concerned about you.
Yes, so good. Yeah, that is one of my favorite little Perd vignettes. Who hasn't had gay thoughts?
The thing about this first question is, I'd like to ask you about the Harvest Festival.
Oh, Perd. So good. So then it cuts away to Andy picking up April's sister Natalie in a creepy van. And Natalie is upset because he's an hour and a half late. And he's like, I had to give everybody foot massages, all this stuff. So then she leaves, and Andy's like, okay, whatever. And it cuts back to office, and people are canceling the sponsorships because of Ben and his total meltdown and the reputation that he's ruining towns everywhere he goes. So Leslie's like, well, I'm going to go on Pawnee today, the Joan Calamezzo show. So that's, they're going to rescue it. And Leslie's going to be the face of this. Security guard comes out to Andy's van. It says, "Are you trying to lure this woman into your van?" To which Andy responds, "Yeah, and she's being really difficult about it."
He gives all the wrong answers.
Yeah. So he gets arrested by the security
Not even
guard.
not even my van. I stole it.
Yeah. Oh, Andy. So cuts back to the studio with Tom schmoozing Joan, talking about how beautiful she is and how they need to get married and how she's Heidi Klum and all this different stuff. And Tom's like, "That's how it's done," to Ben. And so then Leslie is on the show, and Joan introduces her. Leslie is here to tell us how Harvest Fest is going to bankrupt the city. And then her first question is, at what cost? How many cities does Ben need to destroy before he's behind bars?
Yes. Just sensationalist journalism. It's great.
Yes. So like where like Purd is like just puff pieces, like the easiest person in the world. Joan is like really the Walter Cronkite of Pawnee. At what cost? So Leslie it just says, "Well, why don't we just have Ben get over here and answer these questions?" And so it brings him on, and she takes over the show. And Joan, even at one point, is like, "How rude! Like you're just
Just jumping in
doing
there.
this." And so they take
Let's
calls.
take a call. Of course you would.
Yeah. So they take calls, and the first one is, "How can you justify raising taxes on something that's going to hurt the town?" And Leslie's just like, "We're not going to raise taxes." So that's that. While Ben is trying to answer, he's stammering and is like, "Well, you see, um,
He's like playing with the
yeah,
corner of the chair and like just can't even look
yes,
up. It's great.
yeah." And so it's like, "We're not going to raise taxes." So that's that. And then next call. So Leslie seems to have this under control. So it cuts away, and Ron gives April some fishing advice, and basically is like, "Hey, when you have a fish, you reel it in. You don't just play with it." And Andy likes you, is what he's getting at. Andy is. This is what Ron says: is especially if you have a nice fish with a big, lovable fish heart. And April responds, "You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe not. Maybe you really do hate Andy. Maybe moving to Indianapolis is just to get revenge on him. Is a really good idea, but what do I know?"
Hmm.
And so this is Ron actually getting involved in their relationship.
And once again,
And
sage Ron advice,
yeah,
right? He just cuts through it all.
Ron is full of wisdom.
You're like, you're not fooling anybody, man. You
Yeah.
care. You know what's going on.
So my note here says it's really about Andy, Ron HS Smart. So autocorrect for the win. Ron is smart is probably what I meant to say. Cuts to the Ann Perkins house, and they are wafting tea. And Ann wants to talk about their relationship, and Chris is like, "We should absolutely do that right now." And then they drink the tea, and Ann says, "This is gross." And Chris says, "It is. It's hard to drink." And he then proceeds to gulp the whole thing down.
Yeah.
So cuts
And
back to
and he
Pawnee.
has to go to Snurling. Like he goes to Indiana he's going to go back to Indiana for a little bit and then to Snurling. And I think,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if Snurling comes back up outside of Chris's thing, but like, I feel like,
I think it does.
yeah,
So that's going to be a town. I think with a name like Snurling, it has to be mentioned.
sure.
So, yeah.
At
So I think
least
it'll
I
come back
wanted to. Right. Yeah.
around. Yeah. So so they're going to talk about their relationship. It's dark outside, and then it cuts back to Pawnee today. And I didn't realize how late Pawnee today runs. It's almost Pawnee this evening. So I don't know if she just has like a 4-hour block of programming that she
Sure.
does every day, which what we learn about Joan Calamezzo over time is she could fill those hours. Like, if anybody can do it, it's Joan.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised. And so, they're still taking calls, and that one of the questions is like, how many towns does Ben have to bankrupt like before we know better? And Ben then stands up for himself and says, "Look, I didn't bankrupt those towns. I went to those towns because they were bankrupt and now they're not." And so who doesn't do dumb stuff when they're 18 and they're kids? And so the whole conversation changes around like who Ben is and what he does. But he had to confront it like on Joan's show and actually like make a declarative statement about himself. And then the next question is, can you tell me more about the corn maze?
Right. And see, I think go ahead.
Well, the corn maze. Earlier, Crazy Ira and the douche were talking about the corn maze, and then this caller is like, "Can you tell me more about the corn maze?" So I just think it's interesting connection.
Yeah, this whole thing was great. Like at the beginning, like Leslie is going to bring Ben out, and you're like, this is a terrible idea. But when Ben turns this whole thing around, we know that Leslie knew that. Like Leslie knew that if he could just get through it, and there's the one question, and that he kind of just barely gets through it, and then you see her, and she just kind of like a little nod, like, "Yep, this is it." And then once he gets into the thing that he knows about, and he defends himself, it's over after that. But the first question that they asked underneath it, it said Ben Wyatt, human disaster, like underneath his
On
picture,
the Chiron.
the Chiron, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the caller who calls in and says he's bankrupted 7 towns or whatever, he goes, I looked him up on Alta Vista, and he's like, first of all, why is this 1997? Like, why is everyone using Alta Vista? Which I thought was great. They just kept,
Yes.
calling back. And then he does a really smart thing when he defends himself. So who doesn't do dumb stuff at 18? And he asks Joan. And so he turns he turns the tables. Oh, how the turntables.
And
Yeah.
Joan's response is, "I had my gym coach's husband arrested."
Yeah.
Or wife arrested. So, yeah. So Joan is mysterious and troubling in a lot of different ways. We get little hints of her crazy.
And even that Ben doesn't know how to respond, and he's like, oh, so there you go.
Yeah. So, Harvest Fest seems to be saved at this point. Awareness is going up. People are very interested in the corn maze. There's also a roller coaster that Tom mentions on Purge Show that's, wider for Pawnee's larger residents. And yeah, it's going to be a great Harvest Fest. It's going to be wonderful. So cuts to Andy and April. He finished the whole list and he said, whatever you need me to do tomorrow, I'm here for it. That's the deal. I want you to stay. And she kisses him. And then she says, I better be the only person you kiss today. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure you are. So, and the credit scene has the team watching more of Ben's meltdown on Purd's show. And it is all hilarious. And I was hoping to have more quotes on IMDb from that. And it only has hit the interaction between Ron and April about the fish. There's no other quotes. So whoever is an IMDb editor, put more quotes on here, please. Because it's funny. But at the very end, it's like, I'm Perd Hapley. And Ben's response is more like turd craply. And that is a wonderful way to wrap up that segment of the show. So
yeah, that's good.
More like turd craply.
And he owned it at the end too. It's like he's watching himself. He's like, yeah, this is pretty amazing, actually. That's me. And then he takes his bow at the end.
Yeah. All amazing. So yeah, I love this episode, Media Blitz. I love when we get more pictures of Pawnee and all of the craziness of this town, even if the town has way too many media properties for a city of its size. So that drives me crazy, but it's hilarious.
I think, and now as we're really going through, especially like season 3, where things are picking up with a lot of these overarching storylines, you get the highly rated ones, or maybe like fan favorites like Pacitus. And I know that was one of the earlier episodes, but those are almost like standalone episodes. We don't need to know a lot. And this one, I feel like there's a couple different tiers of, this episode moves so much of the story, a lot of the story arcs forward in a really good way. And then there are a couple of those episodes where it's like, oh, this episode, it's not a standalone. They're talking about some of the story arcs, but it's really kind of, I don't want to say boring, but the vehicle that they use to do it isn't all that amazing. But this one was like the media blitz. This was a really, really good episode. So I think for like not the super fans, but the people who really like Pawnee or Parks and Recreation, episodes like this are really popular, or I don't know, they just feel good because they move that whole story, they move the world forward. And so for the casual viewer, this doesn't make a lot of sense, so I could see why it's not rated as high. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but if you're going on to IMDb to rate something, like I would think you are a intentional fan of something, or a harsh critic. So like I'm with you. Like, why is this rated 8.1. Is that where it's at?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 8.1 out of 10 with 1,752 ratings. It's like this doesn't seem right, and I don't know.
Because
I gotta see what the
I,
one stars are saying.
yeah, I just feel like an episode like this, in my opinion, really encapsulates
Mhm.
the feeling of Parks and Recreation. It's really funny, it's really crazy. There's a lot of personalities, and it's also heartwarming. And I think that's what makes it really good. And not every episode can be that or should be that. I get that. So this is one of those episodes where personally I would rate it. It it ranks higher for me than some of the other episodes because like Ron and Tammy, total madness hijinks and could be a standalone episode, but this one feels more like the world of Pawnee, as much as Ron and Tammy kind of was for their little storyline too. So, we're going to have episodes where it's just about one or two characters solely. Anyway.
Yeah.
My opinions.
You have every right to those opinions.
Thank you.
I'm with you. There are only 2 written up reviews that I can see here. And people like it, but yeah, I would put this at a 9 out of 10. No problem. So, if anybody wants to fight me about it, I'll see you at the Millennium Falcon, known as Aurora Antiques Pavilion.
Oh man! And now that you said that, I looked it up and I was wrong. This just in, Jeremy was wrong. There was a high school that looked like, and I remember when I was looking it up. There's a high school that looks like the Millennium Falcon, and not the Antique Mall. And sometimes because I hadn't gone to high school in such a long time, I probably got them confused.
You know what is the weirdest thing at those antique mall things?
Mm-mm.
You can buy like the one in Snohomish, the town of Snohomish.
Yes.
There is a booth that is just selling old yearbooks.
Okay.
Like from a lot of different schools.
What do you do with those?
I don't know. Like I don't know who thought I'm going to collect these. Did you go to school at all of those schools? No. What are you going to do with those? I'm going to sell them to strangers. Do you think they went to those schools? Doubt it.
What if it's like a Pokemon situation where it's like try to collect the class of 74?
All of the classes of 74.
Or just pick one, like you got to start, I'm going to track down all the freshmen in 74 at Linwood High.
And do what with them?
I don't know, just say I found you. I don't know. So you were in this
with a Pokemon.
You were in this book, right? I got, can you sign my yearbook?
When you're in middle school and high school, like you just take for granted, like, yeah, I'm going to sign yearbooks at the end of the year. But then when you're an adult, nobody asks you for a signature unless they're also asking for money. So yeah, I mean, think about making people's day. Like, oh, hey, Bob Flanders, hey, you're here on page 78. Can you sign my yearbook? And they'll be like, oh, are you in here too? And you're like, that's not important.
Don't worry about it. Also, come borrow $5.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, that's a great idea. I think I'm going to go back to that store and get some yearbooks.
All right,
great way to make $5 at a time.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of old friends. Not like that you knew them for a long time. I'm just assuming that they're all old now.
Probably, yeah. So anyway, Media Blitz. That's the one we just talked about.
Yeah. The thing about this episode is we talked about it.
So we should wrap up here before we get too far into like more Facebook or yearbook logic.
Oh, yeah. The only other trivia too, not that it like the personal life stuff totally matters, but I did think it was interesting. I knew that Amy Poehler had dated Nick Kroll, who plays the douche, but she also dated Matt Besser, who is Crazy Ira. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. So Matt Besser was on Upright Citizens Brigade with Amy Poehler, which was a pretty funny show. So
yeah, it is interesting how all of those improv troupes all kind of work together for years and years and years. So or if they were on SNL together, they show up on their shows later. It's pretty great.
Yep. It looks like next week is Indianapolis.
Ooh.
Or next episode. Yeah.
Ooh, that one's a good one.
It is.
I'm going to fast until then. So
Good luck.
We can save room for steak.
Good plan.
So
Let me know how that works.
yeah.
If
Oh
you,
man, that was so good. It talks about Leslie's breakups too. Oh
yes, yes.
yes. Okay, I'm
All right.
excited.
All right.
I have
Cool.
another reason to live for this week.
Okay. 1 week at a time, my friend.
Yeah, 1 week at a time. All right. Well, I'll talk to you later, my friend.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.